You've been cooking ready meals wrong, and it might be making you sick without you even realizing it. Every week, millions of people trust a few minutes in the microwave to deliver something hot, safe, and ready to eat. But behind those simple instructions are mistakes that leave food cold in the center, bacteria alive, and entire meals ruined without you noticing. The worst part? Most of these errors feel completely normal. Skipping the standing time, guessing the microwave settings, ignoring the packaging, things almost everyone does. In this video, we're exposing the biggest ready meal mistakes people make every day, why they matter more than you think, and how to fix them properly. 12. Not reading the packaging properly. The packaging on a ready meal is not decoration. It is a precise set of instructions developed and tested by food scientists to ensure the product reaches the correct temperature, achieves the correct texture, and is safe to eat. Most people read it the way they read the terms and conditions on a software update, a quick glance before doing exactly what they were planning to do anyway. The most common result of this is choosing the wrong cooking method entirely. A significant number of ready meals sold in British supermarkets, particularly the premium and premium plus ranges from Marks & Spencer, Waitrose and Tesco Finest, are specifically designed to be oven cooked. The foil tray they come in is not a coincidence. It is there because the manufacturer knows the oven produces a better result for that specific dish. The sauce thickens properly, the top browns and crisps, and the meat holds its texture. None of that happens in a microwave because a microwave does not produce dry heat and cannot brown or crisp a surface. Then there is the wattage problem. Microwave cooking times on packaging are based on a specific wattage, typically either 800 or 900 watts, and the packaging usually gives times for both. Most people do not know the wattage of their microwave. A 700-watt microwave cooking a meal designed for 900 watts is going to produce a dish that is cold in the center and still partially frozen in the dense sections, even if it looks hot at the edges. A 1000-watt microwave following instructions for 800 watts may overcook the edges and dry out the sauce before the center is piping hot. Both of these outcomes are avoidable. The wattage of your microwave is printed inside the door, on the back panel, or in the manual. Check it once, remember it, and use the corresponding time on every ready meal you cook from that point forward. It costs 10 seconds and prevents every wattage-related cooking failure you will ever have. The packaging also tells you whether to pierce the film, peel back a corner, or leave it entirely intact. These distinctions are not arbitrary. They affect how steam builds inside the tray, how the sauce behaves during heating, and whether certain components stay moist or dry out. The instruction is there for a reason. Follow it. 11. Not preheating the oven. For any ready meal with oven instructions, the instruction to preheat the oven to the specified temperature is not an optional preamble. So it is step one of a cooking process that has been calibrated on the assumption that the oven is already at the correct temperature when the food goes in. When you put a cold ready meal into a cold oven and then turn the oven on, the meal and the oven heat up together. This creates a longer, slower heating process where the food spends a significant period of time in the temperature range that food safety experts call the danger zone, between 5 and 63 degrees Celsius. In that range, bacteria already present in the food, and every pre-cooked ready meal contains some level of bacteria, can multiply rapidly. The longer food spends in that range, the greater the bacterial load by the time it finally reaches a safe temperature. Beyond the safety issue, failing to preheat produces worse food. An oven-cooked ready meal, particularly anything with a pastry top, a crispy potato layer, or a brown cheese surface, depends on the immediate high heat of a preheated oven to begin crisping and browning from the moment it goes in. When the oven starts cold, those surfaces steam rather than crisp. The fish pie topping stays pale and soft. The lasagna surface never goes golden. The result is a dish that is technically edible but texturally flat and visually unappetizing. The 10 to 15 minutes it takes to preheat an oven is not dead time. It is time to set the table, pour a drink, or do anything else that needs doing before you sit down to eat. The oven reaches temperature, the meal goes in, and the cooking process happens as the manufacturer intended. 10. Ignoring the standing time. Standing time is the instruction that almost everyone ignores, partly because it appears at the end after the cooking time and is easy to miss, and partly because the food looks and smells ready the moment the microwave stops. It is not ready. The standing time is not a suggestion. It is part of the cooking process. Microwaves heat food by causing water molecules in the food to vibrate at extremely high speeds, generating heat through friction. This process does not heat food evenly. It creates pockets of intense heat, typically around the edges and in areas with higher water content, and leaves other areas significantly cooler. When the microwave stops, heat continues to travel from the hot areas into the cooler ones through conduction. That redistribution is what the standing time is for. A documented food poisoning incident in the United States involved 44 people who contracted salmonella from a frozen chicken and rice meal. They had followed every cooking instruction precisely except one. They had not observed the standing time. The food was steaming at the edges and still below a safe temperature in the center when they ate it. The bacteria survived. Standing time is not a quality detail, it is a safety step. The Food Standards Agency is explicit on this point in its guidance on home food safety. Standing and stirring are described as part of the process of cooking and reheating in a microwave, not optional extras. For most ready meals, standing time is between 2 and 5 minutes. That is the difference between food that has redistributed its heat safely and food that has a cold, potentially dangerous core. And leave the meal in the microwave with the door closed or on the worktop covered for the full standing time stated on the packaging. Every time. 9. Not stirring during cooking. For ready meals that include a stirring instruction partway through the cooking time, that instruction exists for the same reason as the standing time. Microwaves heat unevenly, and stirring is the mechanical intervention that counteracts that unevenness. The practical effect of not stirring is a dish where the sauce at the outer edges of the tray has been heated to well above the safe minimum temperature of 75 degrees Celsius, while the sauce in the center is still cold enough for bacteria to survive and multiply. When you eat the meal, those cold spots are not always obvious. And a curry or a pasta dish has enough sauce and colour that cold sections are not always visible. You find out about them not immediately, but 6 hours later. The instruction to stir also serves a secondary purpose for dishes with discrete components. A chicken tikka masala where the sauce has been stirred halfway through is a dish where the chicken and the sauce have come into better contact, the flavours have begun to integrate properly, and the texture of the sauce is more consistent. The same dish where the film was never pierced and the tray was never stirred is a dish where the chicken in the centre may still be cold, and the sauce around the edges has dried out slightly. For ready meals in trays that cannot be stirred because they contain a structured dish, such as a lasagna or a fish pie with a topping, the alternative instruction is usually to turn the tray halfway through. This achieves the same goal through rotation rather than stirring, ensuring the edge that was receiving the most microwave energy is now in a different position relative to the magnetron. Follow the instructions. It adds 30 seconds to the cooking process and makes a measurable difference to both quality and safety. 8. Leaving ready meals out of the fridge for too long before cooking. This mistake happens in one of two ways. Either the ready meal is bought and left on the kitchen worktop while something else is done, or it is taken out of the fridge well before cooking because someone assumed it would cook more evenly from room temperature. Both scenarios create the same problem. A chilled ready meal is a pre-cooked food that has been manufactured, chilled, then packaged and transported in a cold chain specifically designed to keep bacteria levels low by keeping the temperature at or below 5 degrees Celsius throughout. The moment that the product sits at room temperature, the bacteria already present in it begin multiplying. The Food Standards Agency's guidance is that chilled, ready-to-eat food should not spend more than a total of 4 hours outside of refrigeration across its entire life before it is eaten. That includes the time in the shop, if the display chiller was inadequate, the time in the car, and the time on your worktop. For a product that has already been through a supply chain, 4 hours is not as generous a window as it sounds. Leaving a chilled ready meal on the worktop for 2 hours before cooking is not something to do casually, and particularly in summer kitchens where ambient temperatures are higher and bacteria multiply faster. Take the meal straight from the fridge to the cooking method stated on the packaging. Cooking instructions are developed based on the food going in from the refrigerator temperature. A meal that has been sitting at room temperature for an hour will cook faster than the instructions anticipate, which affects both the quality of the finished dish and the margin for error in reaching a safe internal temperature uniformly throughout. 7. Using the microwave when the oven would be better. The microwave is the default for most people's ready meal cooking, and for straightforward dishes like soups, curries, pasta sauces, and rice dishes, it produces perfectly adequate results when used correctly. But a large category of ready meals available in British supermarkets are specifically designed and packaged for oven cooking, and microwaving them produces a noticeably inferior result that many people accept without realizing a better option was available. Any ready meal that involves a pastry component, a crumble topping, a cheese gratinated surface, crispy potatoes, or a battered or breaded element falls into this category. The dry heat of an oven at 200 degrees Celsius creates the Maillard reaction on surfaces, the same chemical process that browns toast and caramelizes meat. Microwaves cannot produce this reaction because they heat through moisture, and the Maillard reaction only occurs in the absence of surface moisture at temperatures above around 140 degrees Celsius. A fish pie cooked in a microwave has a pale, soft, slightly rubbery mashed potato topping. The same fish pie cooked in an oven for 35 minutes has a golden, slightly crisp top that breaks and yields to a spoon and tastes like a thing that has been properly cooked. A microwave lasagna has a surface that is barely changed from when it went in, sitting in its own steam. An oven lasagna has a bubbling, brown cheese top and edges that have crisped against the tray. These are not subtle differences. They are the difference between a dish that feels like convenience food and one that feels like it was made properly. If the packaging gives oven instructions and you have 25 minutes to spare, use the oven. The result justifies the time almost every time. 6. Not transferring the food to a plate before eating. This is not purely an etiquette observation. Eating directly from the plastic tray your ready meal comes in is a choice that has practical consequences beyond the social ones. The plastic trays used for ready meals are manufactured to withstand the heat of microwaving or oven cooking and to keep food contained during that process. They are not designed or tested for extended contact with hot food during eating. Once the cooking process is complete and the food is sitting in a hot tray that you are consuming over the course of 15 to 20 minutes, the tray is cooling unevenly and the hot sauce or food is in prolonged contact with the plastic at temperatures that may cause low-level chemical migration from the tray into the food. The UK Food Standards Agency does not make a specific recommendation against eating from ready meal trays, but broader regulatory guidance on plastic food contact materials notes that migration of chemicals from plastic into food increases with temperature, time of contact, and the fat content of the food. A hot curry sitting in a plastic tray for 20 minutes while being eaten is subject to all three of those factors simultaneously. Beyond the food safety question, eating from a tray produces a worse eating experience than eating from a plate. The food cools faster because the plastic tray conducts and dissipates heat less efficiently than a warmed ceramic plate. The portion looks smaller and less appealing on the plate it came in than it does spread across a proper dish. And the practical benefit of not doing an extra piece of washing up is real but modest. Transfer the food to a plate. 5. Discarding the cardboard sleeve. Too early. For ready meals that come in a cardboard outer sleeve with a plastic tray inside, the relationship between the two components is more functional than most people realize. Many people remove the cardboard sleeve entirely at the start and bin it before reading anything. Sometimes this means discarding specific cooking information that appears only on the sleeve and not on the tray itself. More practically, the cardboard sleeve on certain ready meals is specifically designed to be kept on during oven cooking. Some sleeves are constructed to reflect heat slow the cooking of the outer edges of the dish and create a more even temperature throughout the tray. Removing it and cooking the tray without it changes the heat dynamics of the dish. The edges cook faster and may dry out or catch before the center reaches the right temperature. The same logic applies to the instructions on some ready meals to leave the meal in its packaging at room temperature for a specified number of minutes before cooking. This is most common on premium chilled meals, particularly those with multiple components at different temperatures or densities. The brief tempering period allows the densest parts of the dish to lose some of their cold before the meal goes into the oven, producing more even cooking overall. Read the full packaging before removing anything. The sleeve, the tray, the film, and any additional instructions on stickers or separate compartments are all part of the product as designed. But they are not just there to protect the meal during transit. 4. Putting foil trays in the microwave. This happens regularly enough to be worth covering specifically. Certain ready meals, predominantly the premium oven-only ranges, come in foil trays. Foil trays are not microwave safe. They are not microwave safe regardless of what the meal contains, regardless of how hungry you are, and regardless of whether it seems like it will probably be fine. Metal in a microwave causes arcing, which is the visible electrical discharge that appears as sparking inside the microwave. Arcing can damage the magnetron, which is the component that generates the microwaves and is the most expensive part of the appliance to replace. In more severe cases, arcing can cause fires inside the microwave, and the tray does not need to contain a large amount of metal for this to happen. The thin walls of a foil-ready meal tray are sufficient. The solution is straightforward. If a ready meal comes in a foil tray, it is an oven-only meal. If you want to microwave it, transfer the contents to a microwave-safe ceramic or glass dish before cooking. Note that this changes the cooking time and the dynamics of how the meal heats, so you will need to monitor it more carefully than you would following the original instructions. The simpler option is to use the oven as intended. Check the tray before you check the microwave instructions. If the tray is silver and crinkles when you press it, it is foil. If it is black or dark grey and rigid, it is a microwave-safe plastic tray. Now, this distinction is not always immediately obvious in a dimly lit kitchen at 9 in the evening, but it is always worth confirming before you press start. 3. Believing that piping hot edges mean the center is safe. Steam rising from the edges of a ready meal when you peel back the film is not evidence that the food is piping hot throughout. It is evidence that the edges of the food are piping hot. The center may be at a completely different temperature, and in dense dishes like lasagna, shepherd's pie, cottage pie, or anything with a thick protein component, the difference can be substantial. The Food Standards Agency recommends that reheated food should be piping hot all the way through before eating, which corresponds to a core temperature of at least 75 degrees Celsius. At that temperature, and the bacteria most commonly associated with ready meal food poisoning, including Listeria monocytogenes, Salmonella, and Campylobacter, are destroyed. Below that temperature, some of them survive. The practical problem is that most people assess the temperature of a ready meal by touching the tray, looking at whether it is steaming or taking a small taste from the edge. None of these methods tells you anything meaningful about the core temperature of the densest part of the dish. The tray can be too hot to hold, and the center can still be below 75 degrees. A digital food thermometer costs a few pounds and removes all uncertainty. Insert it into the thickest part of the dish, away from the edges and away from any bone after the standing time has elapsed. If it reads 75 degrees Celsius or above, the food is safe. And if it does not, return the meal to the microwave or oven for another 2 minutes and test again. This is not over-caution for its own sake. The Food Standards Agency estimates approximately 2.4 million cases of food poisoning in the UK every year. Ready meals that are not cooked to a safe core temperature are one of the contributing factors. A thermometer makes this entirely avoidable. 2. Refreezing. Ready meals that have been defrosted. This is a food safety mistake with consequences that are not immediately obvious and that operate invisibly until something goes wrong. A significant number of people buy chilled ready meals, freeze them before the use-by date, defrost them when convenient, and then When plans change, refreeze them under the assumption that the cold will simply reset things back to safe. It does not work that way. When a chilled ready meal is frozen, the low temperature halts bacterial reproduction almost entirely, but does not kill bacteria already present. When the meal is defrosted, particularly if defrosted at room temperature rather than in the fridge, bacteria resume multiplying from the point they stopped. If the meal is then refrozen before being eaten, the bacteria are halted again at their new, higher level. When the meal is defrosted and cooked for a second time, the starting bacterial load before cooking is higher than it would have been from the original fresh state. The practical guidance from the Food Standards Agency is that food should not be refrozen after defrosting, unless it has been cooked in between. You can freeze a chilled ready meal before its use by date. You can defrost that meal and cook it thoroughly, and then freeze the cooked leftovers. What you should not do is defrost and refreeze without cooking, or freeze a meal that has already been defrosted once. Store ready meals in the freezer only if they were purchased as frozen, or if they are well within their use by date and have not been previously frozen. Check the label. Most ready meals carry a note stating whether they have been previously frozen or whether they are suitable for home freezing. 1. Treating the use by date as a guideline. The use by date on a ready meal is not a best before date. The distinction is one of the most important and most misunderstood pieces of information on any food packaging in the UK, and confusing the two has genuine health consequences. A best before date refers to quality. After a best before date, food may be less fresh, and less flavorful or less texturally ideal, but it is generally still safe to eat. Tinned goods, dried pasta, breakfast cereals and biscuits carry best before dates because their safety is not meaningfully compromised by age past that point in normal storage conditions. A use by date refers to safety. It appears on chilled and high-risk foods, and it means that the food should not be eaten after the date printed, regardless of how it smells, how it looks, or whether it has been stored correctly in the fridge. Ready meals are required by UK food law to carry a use by date because they are pre-cooked, chilled products that contain protein and the bacteria that present the greatest risk in those products, particularly Listeria monocytogenes, can grow at refrigerator temperatures over time. The use by date is calculated on the basis of food safety testing. It is not a conservative estimate with a buffer built in. Eating a ready meal one day after its use by date may produce no effect at all. It may also produce significant food poisoning. There is no reliable way to assess this by looking at, smelling or tasting the product, because the bacteria responsible do not necessarily change the smell or appearance of food at the concentrations that cause illness. Now you know the mistakes. Here is what correct ready meal cooking looks like. Read the full packaging before removing the sleeve or the film. Check your microwave's wattage and match it to the correct cooking time. Preheat the oven if the instructions call for it. Take the meal directly from the fridge to the cooking method. If microwaving, pierce or peel the film as directed. Stir halfway through if instructed. When the cooking time ends, observe the full standing time with the door closed or the tray covered. Transfer the food to a warmed plate. Insert a thermometer into the thickest part of the dish. If it reads 75 degrees Celsius, sit down and eat it. If it does not, return it to the heat for 2 more minutes and test again. That is it. 5 minutes of additional attention applied consistently to every ready meal you cook will produce better food. Fewer instances of food that is cold in the middle, and 0 instances of food poisoning from a product you followed the instructions on. Most people have spent years making at least half of these mistakes without ever connecting them to the outcomes. Now you can make none of them. Comment below with which mistake surprised you most. The standing time one catches almost everyone. Share this with anyone who has ever eaten a ready meal that was still cold in the middle and assumed the microwave was broken. Subscribe for more practical cooking fixes that make everyday food genuinely better. See you next time.